My name is Emily Brooks, and I was 27 years old when I learned that the people who smiled beside me in every family photo had been lying to my face for nearly half my life. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The whispers that stopped when I entered the room, the conversations that suddenly changed direction, the strange way my mother would look at me whenever someone mentioned money or inheritance. At the time, I convinced myself I was simply overthinking. Families have secrets, I told myself. Every family does. I never imagined that I was the secret. It all started on an ordinary Sunday afternoon. My grandmother was turning 80, and our entire family had gathered at her old farmhouse. The house was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of homemade food. My cousins were taking pictures in the backyard while my uncles argued over football in the living room. On the surface, it looked like the perfect family reunion. I spent nearly 3 hours helping my mother prepare food while everyone else enjoyed themselves outside. She barely thanked me. Every time I tried to sit down, she found another job for me. Emily, refill the drinks. Emily, wash those dishes. Emily, clean the kitchen before the guests see the mess. It wasn't unusual. Somehow I always became the unpaid helper at every family event. I had stopped questioning it years ago. When dinner finally began, everyone found a seat, except me.
"There aren't enough chairs," my aunt said, without even looking at me. "You can eat later." I smiled, like I always did. It's okay. Those 2 words had become my entire personality. It's okay. Even when it wasn't. While everyone laughed around the table, I stood alone in the kitchen, eating cold mashed potatoes from a paper plate. Then my grandmother called my name. "Emily." Her voice was weak but serious. "Come upstairs." Everyone fell strangely quiet. My mother forced a smile. "Mom, whatever it is can wait." "No," Grandma replied firmly. "It cannot." She slowly climbed the stairs, and I followed. The second her bedroom door closed, she locked it. Her hands were shaking. She opened the bottom drawer of an old wooden dresser and pulled out a faded blue envelope wrapped with a thin white ribbon. "I've been hiding this for 12 years. I frowned. "What is it?" She stared at me for a long moment before placing the envelope into my hands. "Don't let your mother see it." My heart immediately started racing. Inside were several old photographs, a birth certificate, legal papers, and a handwritten letter. The first photograph showed a young woman holding a newborn baby. The baby was me. The woman wasn't my mother. I blinked several times. My voice disappeared. This has to be wrong. Grandma quietly wiped away a tear. It isn't. The room suddenly felt too small.
I looked back at the picture. The woman holding me had the same green eyes I saw every morning in my bathroom mirror. The same smile. The same tiny birthmark beside her eyebrow. "Who is she?" I whispered. Grandma closed her eyes before answering. Her name was Sarah. I had never heard that name before. "She was your real mother." The words hit me harder than a physical blow. "No," I shook my head. "No, that's impossible." Grandma reached for my trembling hands. "Your mother didn't give birth to you." I couldn't breathe. "Then who am I?" She opened the handwritten letter. Sarah was my youngest daughter. My entire body froze. If Sarah was your daughter, I looked toward the bedroom door, then the woman downstairs? Grandma nodded slowly. Linda is your aunt. The world stopped. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Mother's Day, every hug, every argument, every punishment, every memory
memory suddenly felt fake. Tears blurred my vision. Why? My voice cracked. Why would they lie to me? Grandma struggled to answer. Because after Sarah died in a car accident, your aunt wanted the insurance money and your father's business shares. Taking you meant taking everything. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So they adopted me? Grandma shook her head. No. She looked directly into my eyes. They never legally adopted you. Silence. My hands became ice cold. What do you mean? She handed me another document. They forged the paperwork.
My stomach dropped. For 12 years, every school record, every medical form, every legal signature had been built on a lie. Before I could ask another question, loud footsteps echoed outside the bedroom. Someone was running upstairs. Then came my mother's furious voice. "Emily!" She slammed against the locked door. "I know Mother gave you something." Another bang. "Open this door!" Grandma squeezed my hand. "Listen carefully." Her voice had become urgent. "If anything happens to me, don't trust anyone in this house." Another violent hit shook the door. "Open the door!" Grandma leaned closer until her forehead almost touched mine. "They've been waiting 12 years for me to die." The bedroom suddenly fell silent. Then we heard the unmistakable sound of a key turning in the lock from the outside. The bedroom door burst open so violently that it slammed against the wall. My aunt, stood in the doorway, breathing heavily. Behind her were my father, 2 uncles, and my older cousin Ryan. None of them looked surprised to see the envelope in my hands. They looked terrified. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then Linda forced a smile. "There you are," she said softly, as if nothing had happened. "We've all been waiting downstairs." I looked at her differently now. The woman I had called Mom for 27 years suddenly looked like a complete stranger. "You lied to me." Her smile disappeared. "You lied every single day." My voice echoed through the room. "Who am I?" No one answered. Grandma slowly stood beside me. "Tell her the truth," she demanded. Linda's jaw tightened. "There is no reason to dig up the past." "The past?" I laughed bitterly. "My entire life is your past." Dad stepped forward with his hands raised. "Sweetheart, don't call me that." The words came out sharper than I expected. "You knew too." He lowered his eyes. That was all the answer I needed. The only father I had ever known had chosen silence over me. Grandma reached for the envelope. She deserves to know everything. Ryan suddenly moved across the room. "I'll take those!" He lunged toward the papers. I stepped back just in time. "Don't touch me!" For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of making a scene. Linda's voice hardened. "Emily, give me those documents!" "No! They don't belong to you!" I almost laughed. "They're about my life!" She took another step. "I raised you! You controlled me! I fed you! You owed me the truth! I sacrificed everything!" "No!" I looked straight into her eyes. "You sacrificed my mother!" Silence. Everyone froze. Even Grandma looked shocked that I had said it aloud. Linda's face dreamed of color. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then explain it!" Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Finally, Uncle Mark spoke. "This isn't the place." "When is the place?" I asked. "When Grandma is dead?" His face turned away. Exactly. Grandma slowly walked toward her dresser again. Hidden beneath a stack of blankets was a small metal box. She removed an old key from around her neck and unlocked it. Inside were dozens of letters, photographs, legal files, newspaper clippings, and several cassette tapes. I kept everything. Linda's eyes widened. No! Grandma nodded. I knew this day would come. She handed me one of the newspaper articles. My hands shook as I unfolded it. The headline stole every bit of air from my lungs. Local woman dies in late-night car crash. Below the headline was a picture. Sarah, my mother, young, smiling, alive. Tears blurred the words. I kept reading. The article claimed she lost control of her car during heavy rain. Accident. Single vehicle. No witnesses. Case closed. Grandma whispered. It wasn't an accident. Every person in the room suddenly looked at her. Linda's voice cracked. Mother! Enough. Grandma had never sounded stronger. I stayed quiet because I was afraid. She pointed toward Linda. I was afraid of my own daughter. The room became impossibly still. What do you mean? I asked. Grandma picked up one final envelope. Its edges were yellow with age. I hired a private investigator after Sarah died. She placed the report in my hands. The police never saw this. I opened the first page. Large, bold letters covered the top. Confidential investigation report. As I flipped through the pages, photographs spilled across the floor. Pictures of tire marks, pictures of broken brake lines, pictures of Sarah's damaged car. One sentence had been circled in red ink. Evidence suggests deliberate mechanical tampering before the collision. I couldn't feel my legs. No, I whispered. No. I slowly looked toward Linda. She had stopped pretending. The fear in her eyes had become something darker, something desperate. You think I killed her? She asked quietly. Nobody answered. Even Dad remained silent. Ryan looked at the floor. Uncle Mark walked backward until he hit the wall. Grandma closed her eyes. I prayed for years that I was wrong. Linda suddenly screamed. I didn't touch the car! The words echoed through the house. Then she realized what she had said. No one had accused her of touching the car. Not once. She covered her mouth. Too late. The room had heard everything. 6 months later. The courtroom was sterile and cold. Nothing like the warm farmhouse where my childhood had been built on lies. I sat in the front row, the metal box resting on my lap. Inside were copies. The originals were locked in a bank vault now, under my name. My real name. Emily Sarah Brooks. The prosecutor stood and addressed the judge. Your Honor, we have concrete evidence that Linda Brooks conspired with her husband, Richard Brooks, to commit fraud, identity theft, and... He paused for effect. Vehicular homicide. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Linda sat at the defense table, wearing an expensive black suit her lawyer had probably chosen. She looked smaller now, older. The fire had taken more than just the farmhouse. It had burned away her mask. She survived that night, pulled from the flames by firefighters. But she couldn't survive what came after. The investigation, the exhumed evidence, the testimonies. Ryan had turned state's witness. So had Uncle Mark. Even my father, Richard, had finally broken, choosing a plea deal over loyalty. They all confirmed what Grandma's investigation had suggested. Linda had discovered that Sarah's husband had made her the sole beneficiary of a substantial life insurance policy and business partnership. When Sarah refused to change it, Linda took matters into her own hands. The brake line was cut 3 days before the accident. Sarah never stood a chance. The prosecutor continued. Furthermore, Linda Brooks unlawfully claimed guardianship of the minor child, Emily Brooks, forging adoption documents to gain access to the inheritance that rightfully belonged to the child. My child. Me. For 12 years, Linda had spent my mother's money, lived in my mother's house, raised me like a servant in my own home. The judge looked directly at Linda. Do you have anything to say before sentencing? Linda slowly stood. For the first time in months, she looked at me. I did love you, she said quietly. I didn't respond.
She waited, as if expecting me to say it's okay one last time. I didn't. The judge cleared his throat. Linda Brooks, you are hereby sentenced to 25 years in state prison for manslaughter, fraud, and conspiracy. Richard Brooks will serve 15 years as an accomplice. Assets obtained through fraudulent means will be returned to Emily Sarah Brooks, the rightful heir. The gavel fell. It was over. 1 year later, I stood in front of a newly built house on the same land where Grandma's farmhouse once stood. The foundation was the same, but everything else was different. Brighter. Honest. Grandma lived in a separate cottage I'd built for her on the property. She spent her days gardening and writing letters to old friends. Ryan visited sometimes. He was the only family member I still spoke to. He'd lost his parents to prison and his inheritance to legal fees, but he never blamed me. You deserved the truth, he'd say. I should have told you years ago. The detective who'd known my mother, Detective James Halloway, had become something like a godfather to me. He'd helped me navigate the legal system, recover my assets, and rebuild my life. Today, he was here for the unveiling. I pulled the white sheet off the stone memorial I'd commissioned. In memory of Sarah Elizabeth Brooks, beloved daughter, devoted mother, her truth lives on. Detective Halloway placed a hand on my shoulder. She would be proud of you. I touched the cold stone, tracing my mother's name with my fingers. For years, I'd been invisible, a ghost in my own life. The girl who always said it's okay, even when her world was crumbling. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I was Sarah's daughter. And I had learned the most important lesson revenge could teach. Sometimes justice isn't about making others suffer. It's about refusing to disappear. It's about standing in the light they tried to bury you under. It's about taking back your name and never, ever saying it's okay when it isn't. Grandma walked over, her cane tapping softly against the stone path. Ready? She asked. For what? She smiled. To start living the life Sarah wanted for you. I looked at the house, the memorial, the land that was finally legally mine. Yes, I said. I'm ready. For the first time in 27 years, I wasn't waiting for permission. I wasn't waiting for approval. I wasn't waiting for someone else to decide my worth. I was simply living. And that, I realized, was the greatest revenge of all. The end.